The cafe was already alive with movement as the morning sun poured through the tall glass windows, casting warm patterns across the wooden floor. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the sweet scent of baked pastries, creating a comforting atmosphere that seemed to welcome every passerby. Among the bustle, a young barista moved with practiced grace, her hands a blur as she steamed milk, pulled espresso shots, and carefully assembled each drink. She had worked at this cafe for a few years, and in that time she had learned to read the rhythm of the morning rush, anticipating the flow of orders before they even reached the counter. She smiled as she greeted the regulars, nodding to the elderly man who always came in for a black coffee at 7:30, and waving to the young couple who liked to share a caramel latte. She liked connecting with people, hearing snippets of their lives and watching how a simple cup of coffee could brighten someone's morning. Her colleagues often joked that she could remember everyone's favorite drink, but she knew it was more than that. It was about paying attention, showing kindness, and making people feel seen. Languages had always fascinated her. In the quiet, moments before the cafe opened, she would study French, Spanish, German, and even Mandarin on her tablet. She loved the way words could carry meaning beyond their sound, how a simple phrase could create a bridge between strangers. She had practiced speaking with travelers who stopped in, eager to share a smile in their native tongue. It was a small skill, but one that made her feel connected to the wider world, beyond the city streets she knew so well. The morning moved swiftly, orders coming in one after another. The barista worked efficiently, balancing speed with care. She had learned that even when the cafe was packed, a moment of warmth could make a huge difference. A quick compliment, a genuine smile, or a patient explanation could transform a rushed customer into someone who felt valued. It was not just about coffee, it was about human connection. Then a man walked in who seemed to momentarily shift the energy of the room. He was impeccably dressed, his suit perfectly pressed, his shoes polished to a shine. There was a quiet confidence in his movements, a calm presence that contrasted with the usual rush of morning customers. He approached the counter, glancing briefly at the menu, but with a hint of distraction in his eyes as though his mind was elsewhere. The barista noticed the slight furrow in his brow, the way he shifted from foot to foot, and instinctively prepared to offer help. He ordered a complicated drink, a mix of flavors and temperatures that seemed to puzzle some of the newer staff members. But she smiled and nodded, asking a few clarifying questions to make sure she understood exactly what he wanted. As she began to prepare the drink, she noticed him pull out a small tablet from his briefcase, typing quickly, glancing at the screen, and then sighing softly. There was something urgent about his presence, a sense of business that needed attention, but also a touch of frustration that was clearly not intended for the cafe staff. While assembling the drink, she overheard him muttering softly in French, then switching to Spanish, then back to English. She paused for a moment, realizing he was trying to resolve something but struggling to communicate clearly. Without thinking, she greeted him in French, asking if he needed help. His eyes widened slightly in surprise, and then he nodded. She switched to Spanish, and he gave a relieved smile. Then she tried German, and his tension seemed to ease further. It was instinctive, natural, a rhythm she had practiced countless times in her small study sessions. Other staff members watched quietly, impressed by the ease with which she navigated multiple languages. The man's demeanor changed visibly. He seemed less burdened, more at ease, as she patiently helped him organize what he needed. Whether it was clarifying an order, helping with directions, or simply understanding his preferences, she handled it with care and skill. Her focus never wavered, and her voice remained calm and friendly, bridging a gap that could have been frustrating for someone who struggled to communicate in a bustling, noisy environment. The other customers began to notice the interaction as well. Some paused to watch, curious about the multilingual exchange. The barista, however, remained entirely engaged with her customer, oblivious to the attention she was drawing. She asked questions gently, confirmed details carefully, and ensured that every part of the process was smooth. It was more than just language. It was empathy, patience, and the ability to read people's needs. In that small moment, she created a connection that went beyond words. The man finally relaxed, visibly relieved that his problem was being handled with such ease. He made a small joke in Italian and she responded in kind, laughing lightly, the sound mingling with the hum of the cafe. The moment felt almost magical, a pause in the usual chaos, where two people from completely different worlds connected over understanding and kindness. It was ordinary, yet extraordinary, a reminder of how small gestures could carry significant meaning. As she handed him the finished drink, she included a little extra care, a neatly folded napkin, a gentle smile, and a friendly remark wishing him a good day. He thanked her sincerely, nodding in appreciation, and walked toward a table, setting his tablet aside, finally able to breathe a little easier. She returned to the counter, resuming the flow of orders, her mind already moving to the next task, but with a quiet satisfaction that lingered. She had helped someone, made their day smoother, and done so with a touch of humanity that felt deeply rewarding. The cafe settled into its usual rhythm, the morning rush continuing as customers came and went. She moved among them with the same attentiveness and care, but there was an unspoken acknowledgement among the staff of the brief extraordinary moment that had occurred. They had witnessed skill and kindness in action, something that was rare and beautiful in its simplicity. Yet she remained humble, unaware of the true significance of the person she had just assisted. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the small but meaningful interaction that had taken place inside the cafe. For her, it was just another morning, another chance to do her job well and connect with people in ways that mattered. She took pride in her work, not for recognition or reward, but for the satisfaction of helping, understanding, and creating moments of genuine human connection. Little did she know that the man she had assisted was no ordinary customer, and that this ordinary morning would ripple outward in ways she could never have imagined, setting the stage for an unexpected turn that would leave everyone amazed. For now, she continued her work with the same energy and focus, taking each order as it came, smiling at every customer, and moving through the cafe with a rhythm that was both comforting and precise. The smell of coffee, the chatter of patrons, and the hiss of the espresso machine formed a familiar background, grounding her in the world she loved and knew so well. Each cup she served was a small act of care, a gesture that made someone's day a little brighter. And though she had no idea of the story that was quietly unfolding around her, the moment she spent helping the multilingual customer had planted a seed of recognition, opportunity, and wonder that would soon grow into something far larger than the cafe itself. She had simply done what she knew best, listened, understood, and acted with kindness. In that ordinary morning, the extraordinary quietly began. The day continued, and the cafe buzzed with the usual crowd, but there was a subtle change in the air. The barista could feel it, though she didn't fully understand why. Perhaps it was the quiet sense of accomplishment that lingered after helping the multilingual customer, or maybe it was just the energy of the morning settling into a rhythm. Either way, she moved through her tasks with steady focus, greeting each customer warmly and managing the growing line with ease. Suddenly, she noticed the man returning to the counter, looking slightly more anxious than before. He held a small device in his hand and approached with hesitant steps. She greeted him as usual, her voice cheerful, but there was a note of concern in her tone as she sensed he needed more than just a drink this time. He spoke quickly, switching between languages, clearly frustrated as he tried to explain a complex problem. She listened carefully, picking up fragments in French, Spanish, and German, piecing together the meaning without interrupting his flow. It quickly became clear that he was dealing with an urgent matter, something important that required precise communication. The barista's mind raced, recalling the phrases she had practiced, the grammar rules she had studied, and the moments she had spent learning to understand people in different tongues. Without hesitation, she began to respond in the languages he was using, matching his rhythm and tone. Each switch between languages felt seamless, natural, almost like a dance that bridged the gap between confusion and clarity. Other staff members watched in awe, whispering quietly among themselves. They had seen her handle regular customers with charm and efficiency, but this was different. This was a situation that could have easily become stressful or overwhelming, yet she remained calm, focused, and patient. She asked clarifying questions in Italian, repeated instructions in Japanese, and offered simple reassurances in Mandarin. Her voice was steady, confident, and kind, creating a safe space in which the man could finally articulate his needs. The man's initial tension slowly melted away. His shoulders relaxed and the furrow in his brow softened. He paused, giving a small, almost shy smile as she explained the steps he needed to take in clear, understandable terms. He was trying to coordinate something urgent for work, perhaps a meeting or a travel arrangement, and her ability to communicate in multiple languages had removed the barrier that had been causing him stress. For the first time that morning, he felt in control. The barista worked quickly but carefully, taking notes, double-checking details, and ensuring that every instruction was clear. She even offered suggestions in the languages he seemed most comfortable with, helping him find solutions he hadn't considered. Her humility was remarkable. She didn't show off her skills or draw attention to herself. She simply did what needed to be done, driven by a desire to help and make things right. Other customers in the cafe began to notice the interaction, intrigued by the multilingual exchange and the genuine care displayed. Some whispered to friends, pointing out how incredible it was to witness someone navigate 6 languages effortlessly. But she remained fully engaged with the man, oblivious to the attention, fully invested in solving his problem. It was a display of skill, patience, and empathy that quietly commanded respect. As the situation unfolded, she realized the complexity of what he was dealing with. It wasn't just about communication. It was about understanding subtle details, nuances that could easily be lost if conveyed incorrectly. She leaned in, listened, attentively and carefully repeated instructions, sometimes in 2 or 3 languages at once, ensuring there was no misunderstanding. She helped him organize his thoughts, break down tasks, and prioritize the steps he needed to take. The man's relief grew with every clear instruction, every careful translation, and every reassuring word. It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, replaced by a sense of clarity and possibility. He even laughed softly at one point when she playfully corrected a phrase he had attempted in Japanese, and the sound was genuine, a sign of trust and ease. In that moment, the busy cafe around them faded away, leaving only the shared understanding between 2 people from very different worlds. Time seemed to stretch as they worked through the problem. The barista's energy never waned. She remained patient, thoughtful, and kind. She made small gestures that went beyond language, pointing to notes, sketching quick diagrams, and nodding encouragingly. She adapted to his needs without hesitation, demonstrating not just skill but empathy, the kind of understanding that comes from paying close attention and caring deeply about helping someone succeed. By the time the issue was resolved, the man's gratitude was evident. He thanked her multiple times, each expression more sincere than the last. He looked at her with admiration and surprise, a recognition of the rare combination of talent, patience, and humility he had just experienced. She smiled gently, brushing off the praise, insisting it was no trouble, that she was happy to help. It was the kind of modesty that made her even more remarkable. Other staff members began to whisper excitedly, sharing their amazement at what had just occurred. Some of the regular customers lingered, commenting on how impressive it was to see someone handle such a complex situation with grace and skill. Yet the barista remained grounded, focusing on the next order, keeping the cafe running smoothly, and treating each customer with the same care and attention she always did. The man finally stepped back, taking a moment to breathe, clearly relieved and appreciative. He gathered his things, pausing briefly to offer a final word of thanks. She responded with a warm smile, wishing him a good day, and turned to continue her work. The cafe returned to its normal rhythm, but there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Something extraordinary had happened within the ordinary, a quiet demonstration of human connection and competence that left a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed it. In the quiet moments that followed, the barista reflected on the interaction. She felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing she had helped someone in a meaningful way. Yet she had no idea who the man really was, the true significance of the problem she had just solved. To her, it was simply another opportunity to do her job, well, to connect with someone in need, and to make a small difference in the course of a day. Unbeknownst to her, the man left the cafe with a renewed sense of confidence and gratitude. His encounter with the barista had reminded him of the value of patience, humility, and genuine skill. It was an unexpected moment of human kindness and competence that had a profound impact, one that he would carry with him as he returned to the fast-paced world of global business. Back in the cafe, the barista continued to serve customers, her hands moving with practiced efficiency, her smile as warm as ever. She greeted each person individually, listening carefully and responding thoughtfully. The day rolled on, orders coming and going, and she handled each one with the same dedication and care. Yet, beneath the routine, there was a quiet excitement, a feeling that something remarkable had occurred, a moment of connection that transcended the ordinary, even if she did not yet know its full significance. It was a testament to her character. Skill combined with empathy, knowledge paired with kindness, and a willingness to step forward when others might hesitate. She had met a challenge head-on, not for recognition or reward, but because she genuinely cared about helping someone. And though the world outside the cafe continued in its usual rhythm, within those walls, a small miracle of understanding and human connection had taken place, one that would ripple outward in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The afternoon arrived with a gentle shift in the cafe's atmosphere. The morning rush had settled, leaving a calmer hum of conversation, the occasional clink of cups, and the steady hiss of the espresso machine. The barista moved among her tasks, cleaning tables, refilling pastries, and taking orders with her usual warmth. She felt a quiet satisfaction from the morning, a sense that she had helped someone in a meaningful way. Little did she know that the morning's interaction would soon reveal a truth that would shock everyone. The manager, a tall, kind-hearted man who had watched her skills with quiet admiration for months, approached her with a careful expression. He lowered his voice slightly, speaking so only she could hear. "Do you realize who your customer was this morning?" he asked. She paused, wiping her hands on her apron, curiosity piqued. I'm not sure," she replied honestly, a hint of nervousness in her tone. The manager smiled, but there was an unmistakable edge of excitement in his eyes. "He's the CEO of a global company, Billionaire, one of the most influential people in the world, and you just helped him solve a problem that even his personal assistants couldn't handle today." She froze for a moment, disbelief washing over her. The man she had thought was a stressed traveler was, in fact, a figure she had only seen in business magazines and online news articles. The reality of it didn't sink in immediately. She had spoken to a billionaire, guided him through a problem using 6 different languages, and treated him with nothing more than genuine kindness and competence. The enormity of it was both thrilling and humbling. Her colleagues began to gather, whispering among themselves, eyes wide with admiration. The story of her morning interaction quickly spread throughout the cafe staff. They were amazed, but she remained grounded, brushing off the attention with a modest laugh. To her it had been just another day, another customer needing help. She didn't seek recognition, and she certainly hadn't realized the significance of her actions until now. Meanwhile, the man himself left the cafe, unaware of the quiet ripple of recognition that was already forming behind him. He had experienced something unusual, something rare in his world of fast-paced meetings, travel, and constant responsibility. The barista's calm, patient, and skillful handling of his problem had made an impression far beyond a simple act of service. In a world where people often rush through interactions, she had taken the time to truly understand and assist him. News of the encounter began to circulate online after someone posted a small anecdote about a barista solving a problem in multiple languages for a high-profile customer. The post was simple, human-centric, and focused on kindness and skill, and it quickly captured attention. People were drawn to the story, fascinated by the blend of ordinary life and extraordinary talent. Comments poured in, celebrating her humility, her linguistic abilities, and the way she had helped someone in a moment of need. The barista herself was mostly unaware of the growing online attention. She continued to serve customers, chat with regulars, and maintain the welcoming environment she had always cherished. She found joy in small interactions, the brief smiles, the shared stories, the moments of connection. Yet even as she went about her work, there was a subtle shift in her life. Something extraordinary had touched her day, and it was a moment that would quietly shape what came next. The manager approached her again later in the day, a small envelope in hand. Inside was a note from the CEO himself, expressing gratitude for her help. The words were simple but meaningful, praising her skill, patience, and the human touch she had brought to a complicated situation. He mentioned that he rarely took the time to personally thank someone, but her actions had stood out in a way that could not be ignored. The note also hinted at future opportunities, a possibility that went far beyond the cafe and the city she knew. She read the note carefully, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement, disbelief, and humility. It was a reminder that small acts, when done with care and skill, could have far-reaching effects. Her attention to detail, her dedication to learning languages, and her genuine desire to help had not gone unnoticed. The moment that had seemed ordinary in the cafe had become extraordinary in ways she could not have imagined. Word of the encounter reached the media subtly at first. Local news outlets reporting a human interest story about a barista who helped a high-profile individual in multiple languages. Interviews were avoided initially, as the focus was on the story rather than the publicity. But soon her calm and composed nature, combined with the remarkable skill she displayed, captured the attention of wider audiences. People were drawn to the authenticity, the human element, and the inspiring message that kindness and competence could create ripples far beyond immediate perception. Her colleagues noticed the subtle changes in her daily interactions. Regular customers began to ask questions about the languages she spoke, expressing curiosity and admiration. Friends and family reached out, sharing in her excitement and celebrating the recognition she had earned through quiet, thoughtful actions. Yet she remained herself, grounded and approachable, continuing to serve coffee, listen, and engage with people in the same human-centric manner she always had. The CEO, in turn, was quietly impressed. In a world filled with formalities and intermediaries, she had addressed his problem directly and effectively, using skill and empathy rather than authority or influence. He mentioned her to a few trusted colleagues and friends, emphasizing the importance of human connection and attentiveness in every interaction. Her impact, though small in a conventional sense, was extraordinary in the context of her ability to make someone feel understood and supported in a moment of stress. The barista began to reflect on the experience with a new perspective. She realized that learning languages, practicing patience, and caring genuinely about others could lead to moments of significance that were impossible to predict. It was not about recognition or fame. It was about doing her best, using her abilities thoughtfully and helping where she could. The encounter had reinforced the value of these principles and the potential for ordinary actions to have extraordinary consequences. She also noticed subtle changes within herself. Confidence grew quietly, a sense of possibility replacing self-doubt. She began to consider opportunities beyond the cafe, ways she could expand her knowledge and skills, and new avenues to help and connect with people. The world suddenly seemed larger, more full of potential, and she felt encouraged to explore paths she had not considered before. It was a gentle but profound transformation, sparked by a simple act of service. Even as the day came to a close and the cafe prepared to shut its doors, the memory of the morning lingered. The barista cleaned tables, restocked supplies, and said goodnight to the last customers, all with the same warmth and attentiveness she always showed. Yet inside there was a quiet awareness that something had changed. A single interaction, handled with care and skill, had opened doors, created recognition, and left an impression on someone far beyond her immediate world. As she locked the door and stepped into the cool evening air, the city lights reflecting softly on the pavement, she felt a sense of calm fulfillment. The morning had started like any other, ordinary and routine, but it had unfolded into an extraordinary story of connection, understanding, and impact. She walked home thoughtfully, reflecting on the power of kindness, patience, and skill, and how these qualities could touch lives in unexpected ways. She was unaware that the ripples of that morning would continue to expand, influencing not just her own life but the world around her in ways she could not yet see. The next few days at the cafe carried on with their usual rhythm, yet there was a subtle, almost unnoticeable shift. The barista found herself moving through her work with a heightened sense of awareness, a quiet confidence that had been absent before the billionaire CEO encounter. Her colleagues noticed it too, seeing a calm assurance in her movements, in the way she spoke to customers, and in the gentle authority with which she handled the morning rush. But for her, it was less about recognition and more about an internal sense of growth. The news of the story had begun to travel quietly, first through word of mouth, then through a local blog that highlighted human interest stories. People were fascinated by the idea of a young barista, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in skill, who could communicate in multiple languages and had helped someone of great influence without hesitation or pretense. While the barista herself remained focused on her daily tasks, the world outside the cafe started to take notice. One morning, a small team from a local news station arrived, politely asking if they could speak to her about the incident. She was initially taken aback, hesitant to appear on camera, but after some gentle encouragement from the manager, she agreed. The interview was casual, emphasizing her love of languages, her approach to helping others, and her enjoyment of connecting with people through simple acts of kindness. She spoke with honesty and warmth, making it clear that her motivation had never been fame or attention. The journalists left, leaving her with a sense of quiet satisfaction and a slightly surreal realization that her story was spreading further than she could have imagined. Meanwhile, the CEO himself had quietly been following the story. Though he preferred to stay out of the public eye, he had been impressed by the way she had handled the situation, and the news coverage confirmed the exceptional nature of her actions. He decided to reach out directly, sending a personal note along with an invitation for her to meet him outside the cafe at a time that suited her schedule. The message was simple, polite, and filled with genuine appreciation. He made it clear that he wanted to personally thank her for her patience, skill, and kindness. The barista read the note with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had never imagined that a routine morning could lead to a personal invitation from someone so prominent. She spent a few moments reflecting, then shared the news with a close friend who worked at the cafe. The friend was overjoyed, teasing gently about the idea of a meeting with a global CEO, yet also admiring the barista's calm and grounded response. It was a moment of anticipation that balanced excitement with humility, and she prepared herself carefully for the meeting. When the day arrived, she felt a mixture of nerves and curiosity as she stepped into the designated location. It was a quiet, elegant setting, removed from the chaos of the city streets and the bustling cafe. She was greeted warmly, not with pomp or pretense, but with sincere gratitude and a relaxed manner that immediately put her at ease. The CEO's demeanor was calm, approachable, and respectful, reinforcing the impression she had formed during their first encounter. He thanked her personally, recounting how her ability to communicate across languages and handle a complex situation had impressed him more than he could express. They talked for some time, not only about the incident but also about her aspirations, her love for languages, and her desire to continue helping people through her skills. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights from his own experiences. The conversation flowed naturally, a genuine exchange between two people who had met under unusual circumstances, yet found common ground in their shared humanity and appreciation for skill and empathy. After the meeting, the barista returned to her everyday routine at the cafe, but something had shifted within her. She carried a quiet confidence, a sense that her actions could have meaningful impact beyond the immediate moment. Customers noticed the subtle glow of contentment and self-assurance in her demeanor, and colleagues observed a newfound depth to her interactions. She continued to serve each person with care, yet there was a subtle difference in the way she approached every interaction. A refined understanding of how her skills and empathy could influence others. The CEO, impressed by her humility and ability, quietly mentioned her in professional circles, praising her as an example of talent, patience, and the importance of human connection. His colleagues and friends were intrigued, curious to understand how an ordinary person could leave such a profound impression. The story grew beyond local interest, inspiring others to recognize the value of kindness, skill, and genuine attention in everyday interactions. People began to reflect on their own actions, realizing that small gestures, when done with care, could resonate far beyond the immediate moment. Back at the cafe, The barista noticed subtle changes in how people interacted with her. Customers were more curious about her language skills, asking questions and sharing stories of their own experiences. She began to engage more actively, offering tips for learning languages, sharing stories of travel, and encouraging simple acts of communication that bridged cultural gaps. It was a rewarding experience, allowing her to connect more deeply with those around her, fostering understanding and spreading the values she cherished. The barista also began to explore new opportunities for growth. She enrolled in advanced language courses online, joined local cultural clubs, and even volunteered to help newcomers navigate the city and its challenges. Each step she took was grounded in the same principles that had guided her actions in the cafe: patience, empathy, and a desire to make a positive impact. She realized that her skills, once a quiet personal interest, had the power to change lives, including her own. Throughout this time, the CEO maintained a quiet but consistent interest in her progress. He offered advice, shared resources, and encouraged her to continue developing her talents. There was no expectation of obligation, only genuine support and recognition of her potential. The barista, humbled and inspired, embraced these opportunities, understanding that the encounter had opened doors that were both unexpected and transformative. As weeks passed, the story of the barista and the CEO continued to inspire others. Social media posts highlighted her multilingual abilities, the human-centered approach she had taken, and the subtle yet profound impact of her actions. Readers were drawn to the authenticity of her story, the way an ordinary individual could create extraordinary moments through skill, empathy, and humility. It became a reminder that influence was not always tied to position or status, but to the quality of one's actions and the care with which they were executed. In the cafe, life continued with its familiar rhythm, yet the barista carried a quiet sense of purpose. Each customer interaction, each task completed, and each word spoken was imbued with a deeper understanding of the potential impact of kindness and competence. She found joy in small successes, satisfaction in genuine connections, and motivation in the knowledge that even simple actions could resonate far beyond their immediate context. She also noticed the personal growth within herself. Challenges that might have once caused anxiety now seemed manageable. Opportunities that might have been overlooked before now appeared as avenues for learning and impact. The confidence she had gained was not boastful or ostentatious. It was calm, steady, and rooted in the recognition that her actions mattered, even in ways she could not always see immediately. The barista's story became a quiet emblem of hope and inspiration. It reminded people that the ordinary could become extraordinary, that skill paired with empathy could create meaningful change, and that genuine human connection was a powerful force in a world often dominated by speed and convenience. She continued her work, serving coffee, listening to customers, and engaging with each person thoughtfully. Yet the ripple effects of her actions spread outward, touching lives she would never meet and inspiring others to approach their own lives with care and attention. And through it all, she remained grounded, focused, and human-centric. Her journey was a testament to the idea that talent, kindness, and patience could create opportunities that were unexpected, transformative, and deeply meaningful. The morning she had helped the CEO had set off a chain of events that changed not just her life, but the perception of those around her. It was a story of growth, connection, and the quiet power of ordinary actions performed with extraordinary care. The weeks following the meeting with the CEO were filled with a quiet sense of purpose and momentum. The barista continued her work at the cafe, but she carried herself differently now. There was a calm assurance in her steps, a gentleness in her interactions, and an awareness that her actions could ripple far beyond the small familiar space of the cafe. She greeted each customer with warmth, but now there was an extra layer of connection, a sense that every conversation mattered and every gesture could have meaning. Her colleagues noticed the change immediately. They had always admired her skill, but there was now a subtle confidence in her movements and voice. They saw her take initiative in ways that inspired those around her. Whether it was organizing a team member through a busy morning, suggesting improvements to the menu display, or patiently guiding new staff members through the cafe routine, her humility remained, but it was paired with a quiet power that commanded respect and attention without ever demanding it. Word of her story had spread even further. Local newspapers, Social media posts and even international news outlets picked up the tale of a barista whose language skills and empathy had helped a high-profile CEO navigate a difficult situation. But the barista never let the attention distract her. She understood that the true value lay not in fame or recognition, but in the simple ability to connect with others, to be patient, to listen, and to act thoughtfully. Her actions, small yet meaningful, had grown into something far greater than she had imagined. One day, a visitor arrived at the cafe unexpectedly. It was the CEO himself, smiling and approachable without any entourage or fanfare. He had come not for publicity, but to personally check in and express his continued gratitude. The barista was initially surprised, unsure how to respond to someone she had only briefly met under extraordinary circumstances. He greeted her warmly, thanking her again for her patience, skill, and kindness, emphasizing how rare it was to encounter someone so capable, yet so genuine. They talked for some time, casually and sincerely. He asked about her language studies, her experiences helping customers, and her aspirations for the future. She shared her goals quietly, her voice filled with earnestness and hope. He listened with interest, offering encouragement and advice drawn from his own experiences, yet never imposing his own agenda. It was a meeting that reinforced the power of humility, patience, and genuine human connection. After the conversation, the barista returned to her work with a renewed sense of inspiration. She felt motivated not only to continue serving customers but to expand her skills and find new ways to help people. She began volunteering at a local community center, offering basic language lessons to immigrants and travelers. She joined cultural clubs and language practice groups, sharing her knowledge and enthusiasm in ways that made a tangible difference in others' lives. Each interaction reminded her that even small actions performed with care and skill could resonate far beyond the immediate moment. The CEO occasionally checked in quietly, offering guidance and support without seeking recognition. His respect for her grew as he observed her continued humility, dedication, and kindness. He saw in her a model of how skill and empathy could create lasting impact, and he shared her story with colleagues and friends, emphasizing the importance of genuine human connection in a world often focused on speed, results, and status. The barista herself began to notice subtle shifts in her own life. She felt more confident in her abilities, more aware of the value of patience and attentiveness, and more open to opportunities she might have previously dismissed. She started exploring advanced language courses, engaging in community projects, and even considering public speaking to share her experiences. The impact of that single morning, when she had helped a stressed customer in 6 languages, had become a catalyst for her growth and expanded vision. At the cafe, the regulars and new customers alike began to notice the extraordinary warmth and skill she brought to her work. Travelers seeking guidance on local attractions or language help were drawn to her naturally, appreciating not just the coffee, but the kindness and attention she offered. Families, professionals, and students alike found comfort in her presence, often leaving the cafe with more than just a drink. They left with a sense of understanding and care that lingered long after they walked out the door. Her colleagues continued to admire her not only for her language skills but for the way she uplifted the cafe's environment. She fostered a culture of patience, empathy, and respect, guiding new team members with gentle encouragement and helping everyone recognize the value of thoughtful action. Her influence was quiet but profound, creating a ripple effect of positive behavior that enhanced the daily experiences of both staff and customers. In her personal life, she also found new confidence. She pursued interests she had once considered distant or unreachable, exploring cultural events, joining language exchange groups, and engaging in volunteer work that utilized her unique abilities. Each experience reinforced the idea that ordinary people, when guided by skill, empathy, and patience, could create meaningful change not only in their immediate environment, but in the broader world as well. Over time, the barista's story became a symbol of the extraordinary potential within everyday actions. People admired her not for fame or wealth, but for the way she combined competence, kindness, and humility. She had shown that influence could arise from genuine connection, that patience and empathy could create impact far beyond what anyone might expect, and that a simple act performed thoughtfully could resonate across lives and communities. One evening, after the cafe had closed and the streets were quiet, She reflected on the journey that had begun with that single morning encounter. She realized that she had grown in ways she had never anticipated, not in wealth, fame, or recognition, but in confidence, purpose, and understanding. She had touched lives, inspired others, and expanded her own horizons, all by being attentive, patient, and kind. She understood now that greatness did not always come with power or title. It could emerge quietly from skillful, empathetic, and thoughtful action. The barista continued to work at the cafe, now with a broader vision for her life and the lives of those she encountered. Every interaction was approached with care, every challenge met with patience, and every opportunity embraced with humility and grace. She remained true to herself, grounded in the values that had guided her from the beginning, yet open to the extraordinary possibilities that had arisen from a simple act of connection. And as she prepared drinks, greeted customers, and navigated the familiar rhythms of the cafe, she carried within her the quiet knowledge that ordinary actions, performed with skill and empathy, could leave an extraordinary mark. That morning with the CEO had changed everything, not because of wealth or fame, but because of the human connection she had created, the empathy she had shown, and the care with which she had acted. It was a story of growth, inspiration, and the remarkable power of ordinary people to create extraordinary moments in the lives of others. The barista smiled softly, knowing that her journey was far from over, and that every day offered new chances to make a meaningful difference.